I just want to read something and put it into the public record. You never know. So this is the Sydney Herald, the Sydney Morning Herald. They wrote, Donald Trump is facing a child rape lawsuit. Why aren't we talking about it? It's written July 4th, 2016, published at 8 a.m. by Clementine Ford. And she's going to reference, I think, a Huffington Post piece. So she's saying that the media has ignored this. There was a very comprehensive piece in the Huffington Post written by Lisa Bloom, an attorney and legal analyst for NBC News. So this is very relevant, very interesting. So I'm just going to read this out loud. Right now, you never know, what could happen. So just to make sure this stays in the public record, it's a pretty good little letter or opinion piece. A few weeks ago, a federal lawsuit was filed in the state of New York naming Donald Trump as one of two alleged rapists of a 13-year-old girl. Despite the gravity of the allegations, the lawsuit seems to have been largely ignored by mainstream media, with the exception of a very comprehensive piece in the Huffington Post written by Lisa Bloom, an attorney and legal analyst for NBC News. A brief, precise, so this is what the allegation says, that Jane Doe, because it's anonymous, so to protect her from, retribution. So Jane Doe is the plaintiff, and she said that in 1994 she was held as a sex slave in an apartment belonging to Jeffrey Epstein, the second defendant in the case. Jane Doe alleges that on one occasion, Trump tied her to a bed, exposed himself, and then proceeded to forcibly rape her. When she pleaded with him to stop, she says he struck her in the face and yelled that he would do what he wanted. Jane Doe also alleges that Epstein vaginally and anally raped her, following the assault by Trump, physically striking her in the head at one point while screaming at Trump that it was he rather than Trump who should have been the one to take her virginity. So they're saying this complaint is saying that you have Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump fighting over who's going to take Jane Doe's virginity, and Donald, gets to her first, and then Jerry Epstein, rapes her afterwards, and then is pissed because he felt he should have been the one to take her virginity. So I'm actually going to read this all over again just because I remember reading this, and I remember, thinking about it, and, I guess, how come we haven't been talking about it much? I'm just a peasant, so really, what can I do about any of this? Then I also thought, too, that it's just an allegation, and just an allegation, that there's possibility, right, of this not being true. They said before, one of the criticisms was that it's politically motivated. But I don't, I haven't been talking much about it, and it has been a, huge blackout. There's been, dead radio silence. When the American media focuses on something, a lot of times they can get some good information, and we learn a lot, within a short amount of time. And so, if the media was to focus on this, we would get to the bottom of it, too. So Jane Doe, she's saying that she's held as a sex slave in an apartment by Epstein, and then she said that Donald tied her to a bed, exposed himself, and then proceeded to forcibly rape her. She pleaded for him to stop. Donald hits her in the face, strikes her in the face somehow, and yelled that he was going to do what he wanted. And then Epstein comes in and rapes her vaginally and anally. And then they're arguing about who should have been able to take her virginity. For the record, Trump's lawyer has dismissed the allegations as categorically untrue, completely fabricated, and politically motivated. But as Bloom points out, there are compelling reasons for the mainstream media to at least consider them worthy of reporting. First, there's the fact that Jeffrey Epstein is a convicted pedophile and level 3 registered sex offender with a preference for underage girls. There's also the matter of his ongoing documented friendship with Trump. So, for many years, Epstein and Donald Trump are friends. Just prior to Epstein's conviction, Trump had this to say about the man he had known for 15 years. He's a terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. He has even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life. That's incredible. So he's saying, he admits that he's friends with Epstein. He's a terrific guy. He's fun to be with. And then something about him liking women on the younger side. No, he doesn't like women. He likes little girls. And the fact that Donald Trump knows about him liking them on the younger side, that says that Donald knows about it. Donald knows Epstein. He's been friends with Epstein for 15 years. And he knows that he likes them on, quote, the younger side. So, carrying on. But more concerning even than that is the fact that Jane Doe claims to have a witness, Tiffany Doe. Both women have, with the court's approval, exercised their right to anonymity for fear of retaliation given the high-profile nature of the case. Worked for a number of years for Epstein, and said part of her job was to lure underage girls to these aforementioned parties. In documents filed to the court, Tiffany Doe says, I personally witnessed 4 sexual encounters that the plaintiff was forced to have with Mr. Trump during this period, including the 4th of these encounters where Mr. Trump forcibly raped her despite her pleas to stop. She says she continues to live in mortal fear of Trump. So she says she witnessed 4 rapes where she saw Donald, and then it said the 4th of the encounters actually had her getting raped too. So she was watching, I guess, Jane Doe get raped for the first 3 times, and then the 4th time she got raped. So we got Jane Doe, who's the original petitioner, the one that, says that Donald raped her. Now we got Tiffany Doe. So you have some corroborating evidence. So you have a witness. So, this is all in court. So there's some judge that has all this information, the Huffington Post. They had the information, and then this opinion piece is putting it all together. So, how come we are talking about it? This case is in court, right? This case is in court. So that means I don't know, you get sovereign immunity if you're the president. So the court case was in court before he became president, so it would seem like it would still carry on. It would still continue. But it just seems like so far, besides these initial, rumblings, it's stuck in court. So Tiffany Doe is the witness. Jane Doe is the victim. Untested though they may be, the allegations are damning. That by itself should be enough to have the mainstream media at least somewhat interested in reporting on them. Never mind the fact they are being leveled against a person who may soon become the leader of the free world. Keep it in mind the fact that Trump, like anyone, is entitled to a presumption of innocence when facing criminal allegations. The media still has an obligation to report on such matters. Why the silence? Is this just another form of the protection given to the people with power, and powerful men in particular? This protection manifests in the most extreme cases to the more benign. Consider Roman Polanski, who admitted to drugging and raping a 13-year-old girl in the 1970s before fleeing to Switzerland. In the intervening decades, he has continued to enjoy strong support from his peers and colleagues in Hollywood. They are the pedophile priests who have been coddled and protected throughout the years by the Catholic Church, the collective of whom are responsible for untold levels of trauma and violence against children. To a lesser degree, a soft landing is provided for politicians like Anthony Weiner and Bill Clinton, the former of whom blithely harassed a number of women with unsolicited photographs of his penis, and the latter of whom conducted a series of affairs while maintaining the highest office in the world. Indeed, even though Bill was eventually impeached, it's Hillary Rodham Clinton who's shouldered the burden of blame for his actions. These are the typical responses given when men with extraordinary power are alleged to have committed crimes of a sexual nature. They're being set up. It's a woman after his money. His opponents are trying to bring him down. Don't forget the gleeful practice of pointing the finger at women who threaten powerful men's careers. Over 50 allegations of sexual assault against Bill Cosby, yet there are still countless people, including Whoopi Goldberg, who claim it's just a case of women trying to extort money from him. So it comes as no surprise that in addition to some of the expected claims of political conspiracy, there are attempts to divert attention away from Trump and back onto the supposed transgressions of Rodham Clinton, his likely opponent for the presidential race. One popular claim is that Rodham Clinton not only volunteered to defend a child rapist in the 1980s, but later laughed about knowing he was guilty on live television. That's not entirely accurate. She did defend a man alleged to have raped a 12-year-old, but she was assigned the case against her wishes. The trial ended in a plea deal according to the wishes of the plaintiff and her mother. And Rodham Clinton did not laugh about her success later on. Rather, she laughed ruefully at how the defendant's successful use of a polygraph machine to claim his innocence showed her unreliable the method was. So she wasn't laughing that he got away with it, but she was laughing, saying that essentially the polygraph machine is just not, it doesn't stand up. It doesn't stand up. So apparently the defendant took the polygraph, so the rapist took the polygraph and I guess was exonerated, or I think exonerated, right? So ironically, just as Trump is entitled to the presumption of innocence before guilt in a court of law, so too are any of Rodham Clinton's clients. As distasteful as I sometimes find the criminal justice system's approach to sexual assault cases, it remains true that everyone is also entitled to a defense, and this means there must be attorneys to provide it for them. Regardless, what does Rodham Clinton's history have to do with Trump's? It's absurd to suggest that the behavior of one person negates that of someone else, especially where alleged child abuse is concerned. Allegations of child rape are a serious matter. Trump may well be entitled to that presumption of innocence before any civil proceedings conclude, but he is not entitled to immunity from investigation because some people dislike the other candidate more. Between now and November 8th, the media will be reporting on Trump as a potential presidential candidate. Let's hope they consider the potential for abuse of power to be something worth looking into. So I'd like to give some commentary. I'm looking at the research. I guess I'll just mention this. Essentially, game theory says that there's only so many things that could happen. So I just listed all the things that happen, the most obvious thing, and then I ended off with the least likely thing. And so, because Hillary isn't in a position of power, Donald, could have done it even more easier. So it's crazy that he's actually peddling out the, cause he retweeted something about Hillary have done it. So, here, I just broke it down. So either one, Epstein killed himself straight up. He had, the wounds beforehand. He has all the reasons in the world to kill himself. So he attempted it once, and then, found his moment and then took it. So, right, the constant, just, all this shit that he's done. So he's got all these, charges. He's not going to get out of it, probably maybe looking at the death penalty. And then he's going to, have to turn on his friends. I wonder if immunity could have got him to turn on his friends. So that's essentially, I thought this was all clickbait. So I didn't want to get into it, just a bunch of clickbait bullshit. I'm so far removed from the centers of power, so it's like, what the hell can we do about it? But then AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she had said, we need some information. What the fuck just happened? And the reason why a lot of people are, pissed off about it, is because he could have testified against a whole bunch of other people. There was a leak that just came out, and it was Bill Richardson. Apparently there was the governor of New Mexico at one point. He ran as a Democrat, or ran for president, ran for the Democratic nominee for president. So Bill Richardson was named, and then there was like two other high-profile people were named. So there's a leak, right, that says all these powerful and rich people are tied to this thing, and then he's killed, and then he's murdered. So who had the motive to, do something? All the 1%, all the rich and powerful, everybody that he knew, his friends, and so it's possible. It's possible there's foul play. I think 75% is my initial, he killed himself straight up. 75% foul play of any kind. So some powerful, rich person went there and choked him to death or paid somebody to, suicide him. I give that a 6%, so that's the third highest. The second highest was a mixture of foul play and suicide. I'm wondering, perhaps Epstein could have just been pressured to kill himself by rich and powerful people. So they didn't, do it themselves. They just, give him, in court, they give him a note. They slipped him a note in court and says, it's coming. You better watch yourself or some crap. So he's getting, pressure in order to, instead of ratting on all of his friends, he doesn't have any good options. He rats on everybody else unless they give him immunity, which they probably won't give him immunity. So he's going to rat on everybody and still be in jail and still worried about if they're going to poison his food or shank him or do this. So he's just going to. So yeah, and then foul play. Donald did it 2%. Foul play. Hillary did it 2%. Foul play. Jinnah Jihad, the Palestinian journalist, the youngest journalist in the world. Maybe she did it, right? That's a 0%. Hillary's a 2%. Donald's a 2%. Very, not likely at all that they did it. Anything's possible. So I'm going to look into some research and then redo those numbers. But that's where I'm at right now. I believe 75% that he most likely killed himself. I think 15% chance that someone had pressured him to do it, and I think there's a 6% chance that somebody actually did it. Either they paid somebody or they did it themselves. They're rich and powerful. They're not going to get their hands dirty on this, so they're going to pay somebody. I remember on Grand Theft Auto, all you had to do is pay some crackhead $1,000, maybe $5,000, and they would go do these jobs for you. So, $1,000, $5,000, that's a nice little chunk of change for somebody that's down and out. So, did Donald do it? 2%. Hillary do it? 2%. Jinnah Jihad, she definitely had nothing to do with it whatsoever. So, those are my 6 options. That's essentially everything that I could think is possible that could have happened in this. There was foul play. There was no foul play. That's what kind of foul play was there? What kind of no foul play was there? Really just the one, right? He killed himself. The foul play, I had about a mixture of foul play and suicide, and then I had 4 different foul plays. So anyways, that's, now that article is in public record, and I feel a little bit better about saying something, especially right now. Like, why would, Hillary have done it? Apparently Bill was on the Lolita Express. Why would Donald have done it? Because he was friends with him for 15 years, said he was a good, terrific guy, a lot of fun to be around, and he likes, little girls. So Donald knows that his friend of 15 years likes little girls. So it's a well-documented 15, that's a chunk of, that's a chunk of change. That's a chunk of time. 15 years knowing somebody, and then he knew that he liked, girls. So that quote, right, he likes them on the younger side. So that indicates that he knew something, that he fucking knew something. So he's got people on the left, people on the right, probably lots of other people that, so they could have got to him, or he could have got to himself. It's a piece of shit. Who gives a fuck? It's a piece of shit, fucking killed himself, so say la fucking V, see you later, sayonara, don't let the door hit you on the ass as you're leaving. Fucking Jeffrey Epstein, right? Like we need a fucking Epstein in this world. And then also kind of crazy that that whole Pizza Pedogate, right? The Pizzagate. That actually, there could be something behind that. But anyways, it's late at night, so I gotta be quiet, so peace.